What's going on, guys? My name is Waydot, and at the time of recording, I have an almost maxed Ironman in Runescape 3. This is going to be a bit of a different video coming from me, but I've wanted to make a video like this for a really long time because, honestly, I just wish I had a video like this when I first started my Ironman. Runescape 3 is a game that is 20 plus years old, and because of that, there is a lot of nuance and depth that might just surprise you. It's a daunting task to take on the Ironman game mode, and today I want to take you guys through some tips and tricks that will help you out on a brand new Ironman just starting Runescape 3. And hopefully include some potential reminders for the other Ironman vets out there who just might be tuning in. So quickly moving into our very first tip. This is what I'm gonna call day one. These are things that you want to get started as soon as possible. So firstly, you're gonna want to unlock Anachronia and start gaining resources. This has no requirements and is extremely simple to do. Just head to the north of the dig site and board the Stormbreaker to begin this process. That way you can immediately start gathering resources and beginning to build your base camp. Also, just as a heads up, don't leave until you have completed the lodestone. That way you always have a teleport back. Secondly, you're gonna wanna complete the archaeology tutorial so that you can use the Font of Life relic. This takes literally 5 minutes and just gives you a passive 500 hit points boost. So if your constitution is level 10, you would normally have 1,000 hit points, but with the Font of Life, you will actually have 1,500. And third, you're gonna wanna try and unlock your player-owned farm as quickly as possible. This is a farm that is literally right beside the Ardoin lodestone on the western side of the map. It requires level 17 farming and 20 construction to complete the tutorial and unlock the farm. A really easy way to go about knocking out those requirements is to do the quest Violet is Blue and Violet is Blue 2, because they reward some pretty hefty XP lamps that can be put into any skill. The reason that you're going to want to knock this out early is because you're going to get access to beehives, and using woad leaves, which are purchasable for 25 coins apiece from Weiss and the Gardener, you can get yourself a ton of early game farming levels very quickly. That's basically it for super early game day one advice. Now let's talk about some other things that I learned in my journey through RuneScape 3. Tip number 2, still talking about the early game a little bit here, but if you're at a stage where you can't quite complete the combat wilderness events because you are unable to get enough damage, it can be majorly beneficial for you to hop to a much more populated world. Personally, for me, I use World 84, which is almost always populated because it's the portables world, and that's a bunch of mainscape stuff that we won't get into, but a lot of times on these worlds, there's going to be a lot more people, which makes the event scale. And because the event is scaled so much, there's actually more monsters that are required to be slain for the event to be finished, and a lot of times on these worlds, people get their personal damage completed and they just tend to stop and stand around, which grants you a little bit more time to get your own damage. Tip number 3, you're going to want to get started on Fort Farinthri. You probably won't be able to build the entire thing until much later in your Ironman career. However, you can definitely get started on it, and I highly recommend doing this early and quickly. Once you have your town hall built, you're actually going to start acquiring some bonus XP passively that you can claim and use in any skill that you want. It's pretty similar to Rested Experience from World of Warcraft, and depending on the tier of your town hall will determine how much Rested XP can be held at once. Tip number 4, you're gonna wanna shoot for 68 fishing. Not only is fishing super essential for acquiring the massive amount of food that you're gonna need doing PVM as an Ironman, at level 68 fishing, you're going to access the Fishing Guild and along with it, the Daily Merchant. With the recent removal of daily challenges, yes, I know they are coming back, but this is currently one of the only ways for Ironmen to acquire Death Touch darts and other super unique items that aren't easily available. You can also purchase Progression for God Wars 2 Reputation, Livid Farm, and even Shattered Worlds. Tip number 5, this one is probably blatantly obvious to most people right now since Necromancy just came out, but I would be remiss to not mention it. The Necromancy skill requires a ton of ashes, and I highly recommend you get yourself the Tome of 2 from the Necromancy Achievement Diaries, as well as completing the Haunted Mine quest. The Tome of 2 allows you to immediately bank ashes almost like you were using porters, but it's completely free. And the Haunted Mine quest unlocks these glowing mushrooms that every time you drop one of them, they turn into ashes. When I gathered most of my ashes during Necromancy, this method using the tome didn't exist, so I wasted a lot of porters. My tip number 6 is that you should join a clan or a community and get doing raids early, especially Beastmaster. You really don't need much gear to do Beastmaster. In my clan, we personally bring along DPS for Beastmaster runs, with the only requirements being at least full Lunars and Vanquish. The benefits are massive. You get access to upgraded abilities, especially Corruption Blast. That one is really important. I know this isn't super easy for everybody. Some people don't like to play the game socially. However, if you did want to find a community that does participate in the raids in RuneScape, you can take a look in the description, as there's a link to my Discord, which also has instructions on how to join our in-game clan. Tip number 7, and this one is a big one. Do not train archaeology without first visiting the wiki page and understanding a little bit about the skill first. A lot of new Ironman and main accounts tend to train this skill the wrong way in the beginning. They just sit at the highest level dig location they can and repair artifacts, but the problem with this is that you're probably missing out on a lot of essential and useful upgrades from actually completing all of the collections and mysteries that you can do along the way. I highly recommend that you take a look at the wiki's archaeology guide. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, there is a panel that will take you through every item that you need to acquire level by level. In the beginning, you're definitely going to outlevel this guide before you actually get all of the items and mysteries completed, but that's okay. It sucks to have to go back and do this at a later time. Also, I have heard people have maxed without knowing this information, but you can right-click your archaeology journal and you can check how many materials you currently have in your deposit box at any given time. And finally, tip number 8. This is going to be more of a general tip. If you get to the point that you want to learn some bossing or learn PVM, whether you're just starting out or you're trying to learn how to do hard mode Zuck, beware. Almost every single guide that you're going to find online is not Ironman friendly, but don't let this discourage you. A lot of the PVM in RuneScape 3 is not actually hyper dependent on gear, but it is dependent on you learning the mechanics and executing what you need to do properly. I'm not saying you're going to be doing high enrage Zammy kills in full mystic gear, but you also don't need every single item that you're going to find on a guide's recommendations. PVM is a very challenging part of RuneScape 3, so all I'm saying is don't get discouraged. You are choosing the more difficult path. You will not have access to a lot of things that these guides are telling you, but in a sense, that makes it more rewarding. Anyway, folks, that's basically it for this one. If you guys like this style of video and you want to see me do some more tips and tricks, things like that, I'm definitely down to do it. Obviously, I wanted to touch on early game Ironman, as I just created my group Ironman, and there was all kinds of stuff that I kind of forgot about that you just need to know when starting an Ironman. Anyway, I hope this helped out some of you guys. If it did, feel free to leave a like. But yeah, I will catch you guys in the next one. Later.